All right, rewatchers, welcome back to another retro rewatch. And today we are actually going to do something I think I've been talking about for a couple of months now, and I'm actually going to give it a shot. We're going to try and do what I'm going to call a hot watch. It's going to be my version of a review. It's probably not going to be like super terribly long. We just kind of want to hit the quick and the dirty. And today, what we're going to talk about is a title that we saw in one of the mail days, and it is Dominique. All right. Now, why Dominique? So this is a really, really interesting title. So there was a YouTube video that I saw that was top five underrated action movies. And I'm not going to get into the list. I've talked about it before, but this was one of them that was on it. And it really piqued my attention right away because some of the scenes that they showed in the YouTube video looked really good. It looked like unique film work, and it just looked like there was going to be some high octane action, and it just looked really interesting. The main character looks pretty, looks tall. So anyway, it just caught my attention. So let's talk about the physicals of the actual physical release real quick. Okay. This is actually a German 4K. All right. So that's something that I get pretty regularly. There's a lot of stuff that comes out in the UK, Germany, just abroad that does not get physical releases here. And there's a lot of them that'll come out in 4K in those countries that don't come out here. And with Dominique, to my knowledge, this is the only physical copy that you can get. And a lot of times when I get stuff from Germany, things go really well. It has good picture, good sound, all that kind of good stuff. This one had some issues. So whenever I bought this thing, one of the things I looked at was I looked on the back of it to see, did it have English? Because there are some releases that don't have English, and that would be a problem because I don't know German that well. So, so that looked good. Okay, good. It's in English. Well, the movie takes place in Colombia, which is a South American country, clearly, and they speak Spanish there. So what's interesting is whenever I put the disc in and I was going to go to the language selection, no English. It said Spanish. So on the packaging, we've got one thing, and on the actual disc, we've got another. Well, so that's kind of crazy. So I went to go select Spanish because I was like, well, maybe they just labeled it wrong. And it's actually somewhere in the middle. Like it has English language and it has a whole lot of Spanish. Well, the issue with me is because I don't speak Spanish, I needed subtitles for the Spanish parts. And the subtitles, all it had was German. So at the end of the day, unfortunately, I actually wasn't even able to watch my physical copy. I actually had to go to Amazon because they actually had it streaming for free on Amazon, and I had to watch it there. So because there was a lot of Spanish, and the thing is, I think there are sometimes whenever it's a little bit, you can actually kind of read body language and other stuff. But in this one, there was a lot of it. It would be like telephone calls where you couldn't see the other person talking. Just it didn't work. So that's a cautionary tale number one. If you do in fact want to get a physical copy of this, and this is the only one you can get, well, there you go. There's some of the there's some of the limitations and drawbacks. The picture looked fantastic for the 10 or 15 minutes that I saw. Um, but that's about the best I could tell you. Now, I'm going to make some comments about the sound as well, but technically, my comments about the sound are from the Amazon that I watched, not this, because I didn't watch deep enough into it to really see the action. Um, the sound design was second rate at best. Anytime there's gunshots, it's very, very weak. There's not a lot of variance in the gun sounds, which is not very good because, I mean, different weapons, different angles, I mean, I've got a 7.2.4 system. So a lot of speakers in the room, and it just gets really muffled and not very directional. Um, all right, so that's kind of it on the technical stuff. Let's talk about the actual movie. So the setup of the movie is we've got a woman. We don't know who she is at the beginning, but there is a plane crash, and there are like Colombian rebels or cartel or something, we don't know what they are, who have shot down the plane, and they're going to the plane to go loot it and see what they can find. And as they are looting the plane, the pilot, who is Dominique, is actually alive. She survived the crash. So she goes on to dispatch the cartels that are investigating the plane, that are looting the plane. And then she takes one of the Jeeps for the cartel, and she leaves. She goes on to figure out where she is because she's crash landed. She didn't make the destination she was supposed to make. And so just by happenstance, she runs into a local policeman, and this is where the story really begins. Is she gets entangled with the local policeman who is living with his sister and his father and family members, and then we're slowly pulling away layers and finding out that cartel, he was actually kind of almost like internal affairs or a higher up police officer, that his actual family had been murdered. And so through the loss of his family, wound up getting back with his original, his close family. And and then we've got the story now. And so I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out there that this is going to be very spoiler heavy. So for anyone that doesn't want to know spoilers, this is probably where you need to stop it. So the police officer is still um, not corrupt. And he is in a very, very corrupt police unit. And they work with the cartel, and they are trying to find what happened at the plane wreck with these, cartels that have been killed. And we wind up running into, and he is trying to get the corruption of the police department rooted out. And the police department that is corrupt, the commanding officer or whatever, the lieutenant, sergeant, whoever's in charge, intercepts and finds out what he's doing. And so they decide that they are going to attack him and make an example of him and murder his entire family. And what we come to find out is Dominique is an assassin, and she has a certain set of skills, if you will, that allow her to put up a fight against the first wave of police that she encounters. And it's really good. It's really good. The action, the choreography, all that's great. And then of course what this leads into is kind of the big bad, the big showdown, where now the local police officers lost like 6 or 7 men, and they call in the cartel, they call in, kind of like SWAT teams and stuff like that. And then at this point in time, Dominique has to come up with a plan of how she's going to defend this house versus like a small army, like 40 or 50 men. And the way she does that is very innovative. Like, it's very unique. I can't say that I've seen it in any other movie, and I will leave that to spoiler free so you can watch it for yourself. But it's really good. I mean, I don't know that it's realistic per se, but at least it's hyper reality, where in a perfect world, it might work. And so, we spend a lot of time with her going through these waves and kind of engaging a certain number of men at a time. And it's really good. That's, that is really good action. Um, where the story goes sideways is, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this. The movie has extreme violence toward children. I don't know on like the world stage, because this is a movie that was made abroad. It wasn't a US made film. I don't know if that's more commonplace, but for me as an American viewer, it was very jarring, and it was very deflating. And I'm not going to get into the specifics of what happened to the children. When and if you decide to watch it, you can see that for yourself. But I will say that up until some of those points, I felt like the movie was extremely rewatchable. I thought it was very good. It was very exciting, but I actually don't know if I would want to watch this again, because as good as all of those parts were, the violence toward the children is so bad and it is so extreme. I don't know if I want to put myself emotionally through that again. And so what's ironic about that though, like for instance, on that list that we talked about to start with, that five um, underappreciated action movies, what got it there, I honestly think was some of that stuff, because these other characters around Dominique do have personality. They have unique things about them, more so than your average action movie, that makes you feel more for them when things go bad. And they go really bad at some points in time. And so it's really kind of a catch 22, because some of that stuff is what makes the movie really unique as far as an action movie, but it's also part of its hindrance by the fact I think maybe it's pushed a little too far. So, a lot of times with people, your greatest weakness is your greatest strength pushed too far, where like you're overdoing it. That's kind of the same thing in this movie. So it was really good with the characterizations and having these layers of people around Dominique, because she herself is fairly stock. I mean, she's kind of like John Wick or something. She's just a machine on a mission. And so if it was just that, the movie probably would be boring, and it probably wouldn't land as well as it does with some of this other stuff. Um, the movie is left where it could absolutely have a sequel. I don't know that it will. I have no idea how much money it did or didn't make. That's usually something Trey brings up. Um, there was a short that was shot, I don't know, maybe like 10 years ago or something like that. You can find it on YouTube. It's called Rise of the Phoenix. And it was kind of like a test movie for this. And it has some similar things to it, but it is actually a different story. So, I mean, it could still happen within the Dominique universe, if you will, where Dominique um, is she's still an assassin. She's still separated from her old past, that she's run from, and she is in a village where there's a hostage issue, and she goes in to retrieve the hostages and get them out. And they're like children for the local village, and that's that's pretty good. I'm trying to remember if she even had any lines in it. And I'm trying to remember what her name was actually. Oksana Orlan. It says introducing her, but she actually has been in a few movies before this. But I actually felt like she was really good. I think she was great for the part. She pulled it off well. And there are elements of the story that are almost like supernatural as well, like especially involving her and that motif of the Phoenix, because there's things that happen to her that would kill your average person, but because she is the superhero of this story, it does not kill her. And I don't even think they approach it from a standpoint of like, okay, well, it's hyper reality and nothing will kill our character. I don't think it's that. I just think it's something that it is a supernatural, almost superhero thing, where like she is not going to be killed by what an average person would be killed from. There is something about her that is stronger than that. So again, that's other things about it that are unique. So if you look on the IMDb, I think the aggregate score of this thing is somewhere around a 5 to a 6. And I really think it's the violence towards the children that's probably driving that a little bit lower into the fives. If it weren't for the violence against children, I'd probably give this thing an 8 or a 9. But with the violence toward children as being so extreme, I could see where it is in the 5 or 6s. And I actually think at the end of the day, that's probably where I put it, just because of some of the rewatchability of it and the emotional. I don't know that I want to do that to myself again. So that's it. I think I've hit everything about Dominique. Maybe it's giving you something to think about. The physical media or not the physical media. Whether the movie interests you or not. Just kind of the last little thing. Action's very good. If you're looking for straight action, very good in the genre. If you're looking for an emotionally charged movie, it actually is that. If it does not bother you as bad to see violence toward children, then great, have at it. You'll probably be fine. If violence towards children is something that gets you choked up and hits you in the feels, it's going to give it a KO in the feels. So just fair warning for that. All right, rewatchers. Well, that's it. We've hit the end of the tape. We're going to hit the rewind button and get to the video store, and we will catch you next time.